After failing to qualify for the 2018 World Cup, the United States returned in Qatar with a promising journey to the round of 16, only falling to the Netherlands. But would it be possible for the United States to actually lift the 2026 World Cup? Let me tell you the 5 key pieces that could come together and lead to the United States shocking the world in 4 years' time. Number one, the MLS needs to be a selling league, and this doesn't just apply to the recent trend we've seen of MLS teams buying quality talent from South America and developing them before shipping them off to Europe. This has to do with development academies within the MLS and the brand new MLS Next program. Previously, U.S. soccer development used to be separate from MLS development academies, but in 2020 that changed with the addition of MLS Next and the combination of U.S. development academies and MLS development academies into one program. MLS Next began with 96 clubs across 6 age groups and has already expanded within 2 years to 133 clubs across North America, and most importantly featuring 90% of youth national team players across the US and Canada. All this really boils down to is having successful youth development academies throughout the country, not only in MLS, but USL and independent clubs as well, as we are seeing through this MLS Next program. Of course, we know about the academies like FC Dallas and Philadelphia Union, who have produced fantastic talent for our team already through the likes of Tyler Adams, Weston McKennie, Brendan Aronson, and more, but in the next 4 years, this needs to become the rule rather than an exception. More than any of the other 5 points, this can help the United States men's national team long beyond 2026, but it will be crucial in 4 years' time if they can develop these talents. I'd keep an eye on players like Cruz Medina, Paxton Aronson, Diego Luna, and more, hopefully ones that we haven't even heard of yet. The MLS becoming a selling league that can produce top talent for the world will not only help domestically, but it will help abroad. Moving into piece number 2 of the puzzle, make winning normal for US players. When I say this, I'm not talking about the national team where the US has recently won the Nations League and the Gold Cup. I'm talking about at club, where it has to become second nature for US players to win silverware. There's only one real player in Weston McKennie at Juventus who is playing on a club that consistently wins trophies, and it is a normal thing for that club to win trophies. When Christian Pulisic won the Champions League with Chelsea, it was a major milestone for US soccer and US soccer fans because it showed that Americans can win these major trophies, but it has to become normal because going into 2026, if you have this mentality that second place is the first loser, that is how you lift the World Cup. That's the only way. The United States started 3 of the 4 youngest starting 11s in Qatar and had the second youngest squad overall. So there's a lot of improvement to be made here if the US players can rise from the level that they are at maybe a Leeds United or a Valencia and move to a club that is upper echelon, that is winning consistently. This is really less about the quality needed of being on those teams and more about the mentality shift in winning trophies in a consistent basis. And that is the perfect segue to the 3rd key piece, which is depth. Of course, the first point about MLS development and youth development in this country can be key, but really I'm talking more about the 14 under 20 players that have been called up to the national team in the last year. Of course, there are players on this list like Gio Reyna and Yunus Musa who will hopefully fall into the category of number 2, being at top clubs consistently winning trophies. But many of these players I want to be at those Leeds and Valencias because if they're there, those are the depth pieces. This is the level of improvement in terms of quality that the United States needs, because it's one thing to get these players into Europe and finally have them performing well. Those are your starters. But you need to have those players doing the same thing and sitting on the bench, because if you can have players as good as Yunus Musa on your bench, it means your starters are that much better. And it means that you have the depth pieces to compete in a tournament like the World Cup, where you never know who is going to be the key piece. The other part to that being, the World Cup and any tournament really is often about who's in the best form. You want to have the biggest range of possibilities or options for your team in the World Cup. You look at Argentina. Players like Enzo Fernandez or Julian Alvarez played major parts in the Argentina lifting the World Cup, but a few years ago, or even a few months ago, you wouldn't have probably said that those players were going to be so important. You just never know. And I hope, just like in point one, there will be players falling into this category in 4 years that we've never even heard of. We know Daryl DK and Matt Turner didn't even play soccer till high school. Hey, sorry to interrupt, but if you're an American soccer fan, this is a channel for you. Hit that subscribe button and join the journey. Back to the video. The fourth key piece has nothing to do with the team or the players. It has to do with you, because the fourth point is home field advantage. In 2026, the US will be hosting it, of course, along with Mexico and Canada, but the vast majority of games, including all of the United States games, will be played in this country. That is a major advantage for the United States. I think any American sports fan is pretty aware of the rabid fans that we have in this country, and they can compete with any fans across the world. It's just, are they soccer fans? Going hand in hand with that MLS expansion, you want the domestic product to increase, because the more soccer fans and the more intense soccer fans we have in 4 years, the bigger this home field advantage will be. Talking about the World Cup specifically, the host nation has won 6 times, starting with Uruguay in 1930 and the last being France in 1998. The US should try and take advantage of this and become the 7th, because away form has become a thorn in the US side for a while now. Under Greg Berhalter, the United States has only won 6 of their 20 away matches, or 30% on the road, whereas at home they've won 31 of 39 matches, or nearly 80% of those matches on home soil. If you're winning 50% more of your matches at home, that is a massive difference, and clearly one that the United States needs to focus on in 2026. And you need to show up and support your team. Speaking of Greg Berhalter, that brings me to final point number 5, which is simply a new coach. With Greg Berhalter at the helm, the United States will never win the World Cup. If it were up to me, I would leave him in a recruiting role, because he's fantastic at that. He just struggles at man management, as we saw with Gio Reyna. We cannot have anything like that happen in 2026, because it is to the detriment of the team, and he's just tactically not as aware as a coach needs to be to lead his team to victory. However, if he's not in charge of the US team, I'm sure he will not want to be in a recruiting role and would rather go coach in Europe, though I don't know why any ambitious club would hire him, if I'm honest. So, who is that manager who could potentially lead the United States to victory in 2026? I think there are 3 routes you could go, either the popular pick, the ambitious pick, or the dark horse. Starting with the popular pick, it is of course Jesse Marsch, the current manager of Leeds United, who went through the Red Bull system of coaching, starting of course in New York with New York Red Bulls in MLS, so he has that experience within the domestic league of the United States, which is important and should not be overlooked. But he succeeded there, moved on to Red Bull Salzburg, where he was winning trophies and succeeding of course as well, and then moved on to the big club in Red Bull Leipzig, but wasn't able to do so well there and got sacked before moving to Leeds United. We see a similar thing happening now at Leeds United, where he is doing well at first, but there are some shaky moments, and can he get through that in the best league in the world, competing against the top managers in the world? I don't think there's any U.S. men's national team fan that would be upset with Jesse Marsch being the next appointment. I think that the majority of the fan base would be extremely excited, and that would be their number 1 pick. But of course, there are some ambitious options. The Athletic has recently reported a list of managers that the United States could be interested in should they move on from Greg Berhalter. Of course, Jesse Marsch is on that list, but there are much more ambitious options, like the likes of Pep Guardiola, Zinedine Zidane, Luis Enrique, Roberto Martinez, and Marcelo Bielsa. Of course, the most ambitious pick on that list is, in my opinion, the greatest manager ever in Pep Guardiola. But is there really any option of that? To me, no. The ambitious pick to me that is at least possible is Marcelo Bielsa. Not only is he obviously out of a job right now, but he's shown interest in national teams, talking with Uruguay, and he's never one who's interested in the money or the fame or the notoriety. He is one of the best coaches available. He is a football philosopher and somebody who is as good tactically and aware as anybody in the world, and that includes Pep Guardiola. He is a manager's manager and a player's manager as well. The only problem I see being he needs his players in tip-top shape and needs to train them day in, day out. So can he do the same thing that he does at a club level where he makes his players run constantly? Can he replicate that in the national team level where he only has his players for maybe a few weeks to a few months a year at best? That would be interesting to see, but of course there is the dark horse option. Well, really many dark horse options, but for me, the dark horse option is Steve Cherundolo, the current manager of LAFC. And he is such a dark horse because this past season was his first season managing at a first division club. Of course, he had the experience at USL Club Las Vegas Lights, the affiliate of LAFC, so he could learn the club and the way that things are run so that he could become the manager this past season. But he absolutely smashed it. He won the double with the Supporters Shield and MLS Cup in his first season, breaking many records including most wins by a first-year head coach in MLS history. But the reason he's my dark horse pick is less to do with all the accolades that he accomplished in his first season and more the way that he did it. He's a manager who takes his time and methodically plans out his next step so that he is aware and makes sure that he is ready for that next step in his career. He has shown that by not leaping in to the LAFC job too early, focusing on Las Vegas Lights before he is ready. Hopefully, after another season at LAFC, he feels he's ready for that next step into the national team job if the US wants him. I asked him during the MLS playoffs if he's interested in potentially having that job in the future, and he said that he is flattered by all the focus that he is getting, but of course he is focused on LAFC at the moment. If the United States can make MLS a selling league, make winning normal for their players at club level, create some depth, take advantage of that home field advantage in 2026, and of course find that right new manager, they could shock the world and lift the 2026 World Cup. But are there any other key pieces that they need? Let me know in the comments. Thank you so much for watching. Please drop a like and a subscription and show YouTube that Americans care about soccer too. See you next time.